Hello and welcome back or welcome to my channel. I am Beth and this is Spiral Path Arts and I'm so glad that you are here. Today I want to share with you another little scrappy project. So get out all your little tiny bits and pieces and we're going to make some itty bitty landscapes, slow stitched landscapes. Here's just a couple that I've made recently. I hope they're focusing. There we go. Here's another one. Go. The one I'm going to show you today is this one that I'm lovingly calling Purple Mountain's Majesty. And I will take you through the steps of how I did this one and how you can make one too. And just get out your little scraps and have a go at it. I think you'll enjoy it. So let's go to the work table and I'll show you how to make one of these. Put the finished ones aside and let's get out what we're going to need. Again, this is a great way to use up all those little bits of batting that you've trimmed off. If you've made some of the fabric boxes, you may have had to trim, some weird shapes. You can use your cotton batting, different weights. This is, what is this stuff called? Thermolam or something like that. It is more of a polyester batting. It's not, I think I have this to make bags and things. I think that's where this came from. But I have a whole bunch of it. It's not the most pleasant to hand stitch through, but because we're working in such tiny sizes, it's not that bad. So let's get started. This isn't even a square piece. It's, kind of angled and wonky, but we're going to use it. And then we're going to get out our little bunches of itty bitty scraps. Now I have itty bittier scraps than these, but I actually sorted them the other day and kind of have them. These are the medium little ones, depending on what project I'm working on. This is great fabric for some kind of sky or water. Just going to grab some randoms. This would be good for a bigger one, so I'm going to save that one. Maybe some, there's something that has kind of a sunny look. This is also a really good one. This one is pretty much what I used entirely for this, just different places from, let's see if I can get another piece of that, from that particular fabric that have different shades of gray, blue, and green. That's a great, if you have something like that, that's really, really, really good for this kind of thing. Now here is the truth behind these. Because, I'm going to share the truth with you. Other than this, oops, just knocked something off here. Other than this one, this kind of Smoky Mountains look, the other two did not start out intending to be landscapes or naturals. I just put the fabric on, and once I started stitching, first this tree kind of came out of nowhere, and I went with it. So, let's sometimes just go with it and see what happens. But since they turned out so cute as little landscapes, I thought, well, that's something I can share with y'all. So here we are. Okay, I'm going to take my little bit here. If it really bothers you that it's not square, trim it up. But as you can see, the edges get a little wibbly wobbly and weird when we're finished, at least the way I finish them. Okay, so we can, maybe, I'm just going to play a little bit. I'm not going to decide anything for sure until after I've gotten some bits on here. And you don't need a whole lot of different ones. I wish that one was pressed. But I don't even have the iron hot right now. Maybe like a stormy sky. Wouldn't that be nice if that wonky angle was the same wonky angle as the fabric that it kind of is. All right, we're going to go with that. See, now, because I'm trying to make some kind of scene I'm going to struggle a lot more than when I just threw some fabric together and said, oh, look, that ended up looking like some kind of piece, you know, some kind of something. So okay, this little bit of, I don't know, let's see. This one's bugging me because of this wrinkle part, and I'm too lazy to go get my iron's actually out. It's just not plugged in and hot, so, because it's always out. All right, so that could, we're not going to cut the end off because we may move it around. You could just start with that, and you could put a tree, you could put a flower. Actually, let's do that. And again, I'm not going to worry about this little bit that's here because when I stitch the edges, that will probably be covered up. And if it isn't, I'll trim it off and we'll make it covered up. Okay, just going to trim that excess off and start there. These are so tiny. I'm struggling a little bit. I really like this edge. This, you know, it's the selvage, and it's got a little fuzzy, and it kind of looks like grass. But I don't know what this is doing down here to me. See, I'm overthinking it because I'm trying to make it look like a thing, a something. Okay, we're going to trim that. Now, what will I do next? What I'm going to do next is I am going to, the sounds you're hearing in the background are Maeve being, getting her freak on, getting her, I don't know what she's doing. She's running around the room. She's the one who just lives in here and it doesn't have to deal with the other two cats. And I'm happy to say that since she has been isolated, she is coming out of her shell a lot more and a happier cat. So anybody who's concerned that this poor cat has to live in this one room for her eternity, don't worry about her. She has big windows with a bird feeder outside, and I come in and talk to her and hang out with her every day. She gets food, she gets water, and she came from a situation where she was living outdoors under a house and perhaps had some kittens that were attacked and or something happened to them. So this is the cushy life for her, and she's more than happy and has lots of toys and space and all the goodness. And she no longer gets stressed out like she was when I was trying to have her live in general population. So this is working better for all of us. Okay, I am just quickly basting these little pieces down because especially something this small, I don't like to have pins in my way. But this is how I'm doing it. Let me see. Let me bring it to the back side. So just long stitches with little back stitches. And so I'm coming up in that corner. I just like to keep every corner and every overlapping piece tacked down so that when I'm stitching, they don't shift around till I get, more stitches in it. And doing them this way with a nice neutral color, you don't have to remove them. You can if they end up showing, you don't put enough stitching on them, but they don't usually end up showing. So this is a step I do on pretty much any of my little hand stitch, slow stitching things, just to keep everybody together. And then I just cut it off. I don't knot it or anything like that. Usually at this stage, I will do 3, 4, however many, and just sit here and throw fabric on to a piece of usually batting. I just like the batting. It just gives it a little more something when it's all done. So this one, just gonna put it that way. that sky way up there. Now there's no one saying you couldn't do two of the same fabric. Kind of overlap them. Ooh, well, what do you think about that? Well, we'll leave it there for now. Again, I'm going to try to not make this look, oh, I want this to look like a seascape or a meadow or something like that. I'm just going to put some pretty colors here and drop my good ruler on the floor in the process. And because this is how I fabric collage. I did have a question from someone saying, I'm not familiar with the concept of fabric collaging. And I was like, well, guess what? I have a video coming out just to talk about that. So here we are. Well, that's a pretty piece. That's a maybe. Let's bring this back over here. So you don't have to have blue sky, green ground, green grass, brown sand or dirt, yellow sun. Just throw things on there, and quite often it will end up being what it's going to be when you're done, or while you're working on it. That's what I find anyway. Okay, I'm just going to do something. And if I just like that, I can always cut, this. We're not trying to make them a certain size. We're just using up, adding little bits. Well, that's not bad. And they don't have to be, well, we saw on this one, they don't have to be square and squared up and things like that. They can, this one was, had a little, was that the same fabric? Nope. Angles. And of course, these were all angly pieces that I put on here to make the mountains. That's what started the whole thing. I pulled out some of this fabric that had been cut on an angle and said, oh, that looks like the Smoky Mountains. So I am going to do that. I don't like that orange on orange. Maybe this duller green. Let's try that. Here we go. That fits. Let's do another mountain scene. Maybe we're going to do a Purple Mountains Majesty. Let's get some purples out here. Okay, there's some blue that would be a good mountain sky blue. It's not sky blue, but that look. We could do bright blue, but I think I like these. I like these kind of, that looks very sky-like. So I'm just gonna save those for another project another day. Throw that up there for now. We'll cover all the wonky edges eventually. Maybe, hopefully. Cat is being hilarious. Yeah, these little scraps are just going to make me have to go get the iron heated up. I don't know that I like these. I'm just going to put them there to start with. Since this one has a little wrinkle, we're just going to use that as our excuse to cut that off. Okay, this is the one I kind of want in the background. One of my favorite fabrics, and it's almost all gone. Heartbreaking. Okay. But yes, I was asked, so I'm answering this question. I do everything raw edge, and I don't use fusibles, although I think I have a project in the near future that I will use some fusible web. because because that project's going to call for that. So let's just make this a kind of mountainy shape. Put that there. Okay. And is that one, if I cut it the right way, gonna cover that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe I could tuck that there. Oh, no, I don't like that either. Okay. Again, I can always either cover or trim off those edges. Okay, so there is, oh, I have a couple pins. I'm just going to pin this temporarily until I get it basted down. And then I can flip it over. You don't have to trim this off, but you can. Okay. And even these little tiny pieces, you can save them. And that's a project coming up. I've been playing with a little bit. Okay, so I have 3 of them prepared. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to base these 2, and then we will figure out what we want to stitch on these. The mountains are going to be pretty easy. Not easy, but a little simpler maybe. Because as you can see on the blue ones, it's mostly all running stitch in different directions, but I did do some fly stitch and some, I don't know, I was in the bullion knot mood the night I did this. I don't particularly like the way those ended up, but you know, here we are. And just some little X's and seed stitches on this, just different textures. So you can just, that is perfectly. Let me show you some of these other ones. Again, this one is almost all just a straight stitch or running stitch. I stitched, there was this little light spot in this yellow fabric. I got more of it somewhere. It's this. And, you know, it had a little light spot. And I was like, oh, that looks like a rising sun. So here we are. The only different stitch on these is this little herringbone stitch that I did to make waves. Made some waves. And this one, the tree trunk, hope you can see that. Let me stand up and see if I can get this where you can really see it. So this one, the trunk of the tree is stem stitch with a variegated brown thread. Lots of feather stitch on the bottom there, kind of as grasses. And then just that little yellow piece is just a little yellow piece. It's not supposed to be anything. It's just pretty. Oh, and then all the little leaves, again, a variegated green thread. And they're just a little detached chain or lazy daisy, whatever you want to call it. So you can get as detailed or as simple as you want with these. And sometimes just changing the thread color or adding a few interesting stitches will be cool. So the next thing we're going to do is start stitching these together. We've laid them out. We've collaged them where we are going to baste them. This one's basted, so I'll baste the others. And then we'll start doing some random stitching on them. Okay? Let's do it. Here we are with our piece all basted down, so the pins are out of the way. Let's set that aside. And then I want to pick out some threads. And these are my Valdani number 12 pearl cottons. I absolutely adore this thread, but you do not have to have thread like this. You can easily have your regular 6-strand floss and use 2 or 3 strands. I kind of mix it up if I don't have a color, because yeah, I'd like to have every color of Valdani they make, but my budget doesn't allow that, so, and my storage situation. So anyway, I'm going to pull out a few threads that I think will go with this project. So of course, I'm going to pull out my purples. Kind of want to use this one just because it's all wonky, but I don't. And then I think this kind of, okay, those 3 purples work really well for the mountains. And then what do I want to do for that sky? Do I want to add blue to perk it up? Because then this is also where your color theory can come in. If you've got a color that's too bright, put its complementary color on top of it. Can you tell I've been mixing paint a lot lately? And dull it down a little bit with some stitches. Or add, you know, like, what do I have here? This orange one, this one, you know, I added green and gold feather stitch, and it stands out more, covers up the orange. Whatever, okay. So I've got my 3 purples, and then I need something for that sky. And I think, can I go with this one? Because it, yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. Quite often when I start one of these, I don't even like select my threads. I just dip into the thing and start stitching, but it all depends on what I'm trying to do. And then since in this one, I'm trying to make it look like a thing, a certain thing, then here we are. And my center pull threads, the ones that have been used quite a bit, are kind of falling apart. So anyhow, I am using, what am I using? Because quite often people ask about threads and needles and things. This is a tulip embroidery number 9. And I feel like I have not only accomplished something, you know, with my channel now getting more followers, but on a more personal note, my number 9 embroidery needle is also slightly bent, just like Catherine at K3N Cloth Tales. So I've obviously achieved some like level of achievement, I don't know, for stitching enough that my needle bent. And so there we are. And I don't think that's the first needle I've ever bent, but she's talked about her bent number 9 tulip needle in the past. And the other day when I was stitching and I noticed it was bent, I was like, yes, I've arrived. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, I can do anything up here, right? But to make things, where's my other one? One of the things I like to do is just do a straight stitch, a running stitch, but do it in different directions. Now, since I had the sky going up and down here, let's go back and forth on the sky here. So I'm going to start in this corner. You don't have to do knots, but since the back is going to be covered, I am going to do knots. And this one is on the cotton batting, just regular, you know, whatever kind of cotton batting this was. So it allows me to kind of do the in and out quilt running stitch more than a stabbing stitch, but either one is fine. This is just, I tend to get my, even with my bent needle, a straighter row of stitches if I do it that way. And of course I'm going to get tangles because I'm talking and not paying attention. And I cut a very long piece of thread to start with here because I don't like to have to rethread my needle on camera. But then I'll probably end up with a knot. All right. I'm jabbering here. So while I'm jabbering, wittering, whatever the other words for whatever this vocalizations that I'm doing, while I stitch, I thought, yeah, I would talk to you a little bit about my other slow stitch, or my, I don't know, my 2025 slow stitch thing that hasn't, I've kind of abandoned already. And that is my Mindful Mondays making art. I still like the idea. I have done 2 of the 7 chakras and 1 of like a seasonal one for Imbolc. And of course, here we are as I'm recording this, and it's pretty much first day of spring, and I did not do one for this time of year. But anyway, back to the topic I was trying to get to. I'm thinking of resurrecting it with some modifications. All right, while I was over on this side of the Purple Mountain, I just decided to just kind of fill in that space, but now I need to come back over here. I could just, pull the thread over there, and because again, it's going to be covered, but I like to kind of just go between the fabric and the batting just to get my needle kind of back over in the neighborhood it needs to be. Then I'm less likely to catch it as I'm stitching the other parts. You can nod off and start over again if you want. Whatever pleases you. Okay, back to the chakra slow stitch reboot. If you haven't watched any of those videos, and there's, like I said, there's only 3. The premise, the concept, the idea, the layout, is that the word I want, of them was that we would do a short yoga practice, then a meditation, and then take those things, insights from those 2 activities to the stitching space, the art space, and create a little piece inspired by our theme of the week. Well, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I know I didn't. I think I forgot to mention it in my intro video that I put out a couple weeks ago. I am a certified yoga teacher and have done 800 hours or more of yoga teacher training, but I don't actively teach anymore. And also I realized as I was making those videos, it kind of took me back to pandemic time when so many teachers, yoga studios, were forced to put their teachings online, and some have continued to do that, and I just couldn't do it. It's just not the way I teach yoga. I like to teach to the person in front of me. I'm a little bit more of a intuitive, I don't know how to describe how I teach yoga, but I struggled if I had to do. And then here I try to start an entire new YouTube series based on the idea of teaching yoga on YouTube. I don't have the right setup for it. I could not get the right camera angles. I could not get the sound right in this room. I'm probably still not with this video, but a little bit better. I just was struggling, and then I didn't want to make the videos, and then I didn't want to do any of the video stuff. And I was like, well, that's not why I'm doing YouTube. I'm doing this because I want to share things that are important to me, things that matter. And it was just stressing me out. So even though I think, it does what I was doing was a good thing. But anyway, I decided to, okay, I've lost my train of thought. The train has left the station again. Anyhow, so I was not happy with the end result of the videos I made. A couple of them I liked better than others, but the main issue I was having was with the yoga portion. I just wasn't happy. So and they also weren't getting a lot of views and everything, which was okay with me because I wasn't happy with them. So it's all good that nobody watched them. So I was like, well, why am I putting a lot of effort into something I don't enjoy, and that's taking me away from things I do enjoy, especially when it's not getting any response. So I tabled it. But the thing is, I actually have all the stuff to do the stitching part, the art part, I loved, and it was enjoyable. And it was very much like this video. I was just sitting and stitching the project and talking about my inspiration and my, where I was coming up with the ideas for things and stitching it with y'all. So that part I enjoyed, obviously, because I'm doing it again here, just a different theme. And so I think, and I also hate leaving things half done. I have 7 chakras and I've only done 2. So that just bothers me. Ouch, just poked myself. Anyway, so here we are. I think sometime in April, I'm going to revisit it. I am going to revamp it, different format. I'm going to leave the yoga stuff out. I am going to probably leave the meditation stuff out and just stitch my themed pieces with you and talk about what the theme is as we stitch. Or maybe, as I introduce the idea and tell you what materials to gather and that kind of thing. So if you're interested in our slow stitching and it sounds interesting to you, start to check it out when I come back. I mean, you can check out the 3 that are there. There is a playlist. And if YouTube cooperates with me, I will put a link right here on screen to the playlist. I did that on another video, and none of the cards came up. And when it went out to the people, so I don't know what's up with that. I checked it like 3 times to make sure I saved it. And anyway, frustrations behind the scene you don't need to know about. Okay, on this one, can you see it? I am, again, parallel lines of just straight stitch, but I am following the curve of the mountain. That's how I did this one. I just like that far away one. And instead of picking the thread that matched the one I'm stitching on the best, I went with the one that matches the fabric below it to kind of blend the 2 together, because I will probably, I don't know, I might bring the bright over here and then bring the dull in here, just to kind of make everybody work better together. But usually, like I said, I usually don't decide those things at the jump. I usually decide them as I'm just kind of doing things. But so you can do it whatever way works for you in your brain, in your style of stitching. Gather all the parts and kind of have an idea in mind, or wing it and see what happens. Some of these I'm going to patch together, collage together a few more of these minis, because tomorrow, as I record this tomorrow, but it'll probably be a couple weeks. I'm trying to work ahead. If you've been with me for a while, you know that sometimes I get overwhelmed and then no videos come out for a few weeks because so I'm trying to avoid that 2025. Actually have them made ahead of time. Anyway, another background information that you didn't ask for and don't really need. Okay, so it will have already happened by the time you're seeing this video, but tomorrow, as I record this, I am heading down to Camden, Alabama. It's a really cool little kind of tiny little Alabama town. And it's where I have some of my handmade items for sale. They have the Black Belt Treasures, and I will link them in the show notes. Black Belt Treasures Cultural Arts Center. It has nothing to do with martial arts. This part of Alabama is called the Black Belt, and there are different theories. Some more politically correct than others as to why it's called the Black Belt. The one I hear the most and the most least offensive one is that this was the agricultural center of Alabama, which also plays into the historic reasons why the other name, other reason for the name. Anyway, I digress. That our soil is black and fertile, and yeah, my experience though driving around is that it's kind of red clay, just like Georgia, so your mileage may vary. Anyhow, it's pretty well known that this area of Alabama is called the Black Belt, and so that's where the name Black Belt Treasures comes from. There are many artists. We all have to live in the Black Belt region of Alabama to have our items there, and it's quite a variety. Tomorrow, I'm going there to spend the day to be, I don't know what the word is, not artist in residence, but they're having an event in Camden, and the tour of homes. It's a big thing down here in the South this time of year to have these pilgrimage/tour of homes, and that's Wilcox County, so brings a lot of people into town anyway. And they wanted to have some of their artists, their featured artists, in-house, either working on some projects or just having our stuff out and speaking with patrons as they come through about our art and what we make and how we make it and the materials we use and all that kind of things. So I am going to take a bunch of these little minis and some. I'm going to actually have to probably choose my thread ahead of time, which is very unusual for me, but take a bunch of these little, pre-basted minis with me so that I can sit and stitch them there. I didn't want to bring a real big project. I also didn't want to bring a project like my English paper piecing that, even though I really want to work on it, I don't sell that kind of thing there. So can you imagine how much I would have to charge just to make it, for something English paper piece, especially something large? I mean, something like this wristband, that's different. But anyhow, the thousands of hours that are going into that project that I'm currently working on is a lot. So anyway, that's what's happening tomorrow. And so I am going to pre-make some of these to stitch on. Okay, let's do this bright one. So the question is, do we want the bright thread on the bright mountain, or do we want to dull the mountain down by putting one of these on it? I think because it's behind this other one, I'm going to use the dark. Again, I usually don't think that hard. I usually just grab it and go, but okay. Oops, wrong needle. Shoot, just poked myself again. My fingers are, ouch, so calloused. And they're dirty because I mowed lawn and did a bunch of yard work yesterday and have not been able to get my fingernails clean at the moment. But I think tonight might be a soak in a hot bathtub kind of night because of my sore muscles from weed whacking and doing other yard stuff yesterday. I just didn't have time last night to get in the tub afterward. So I didn't. Now, if you would like, if the raw edges of fabric bother you, and they might, you can always do like a little, let's do that along here, a small, you can just do a little whip stitch, a little straight stitch kind of over it. But I love a basket, not basket weave, what is the word I want? Blanket stitch, there we go. Of course I have a nice long thread and it's going to get tangled as I try to do a blanket stitch. beauty of these little projects like these, like a lot of slow stitchers do like the meditation scrolls. I've done a couple, they're fun. But any of these little ones, they're just kind of fun because again, how many times in a video can I comment about using up scraps, using up the smallest bits? I know, it's kind of you're probably tired of hearing it. But anyway, when they're finished, they're just so cute. And you're like, well, what am I going to do with that? Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of artist trading cards. I feel like they kind of came out, was that the early 2000s that I started seeing things about artist trading cards. So, you know, whatever kind of art you do these little 2x3 pieces that you can trade with other artists. And so they could be used for that kind of item. I think I've seen some really cute like mini frames, and maybe because my daughter's been working in mini stuff, I'm in a mini mood. But if you got just a little frame and put one of these in it, that'd be just super cute. But you could stick it in a gift card to someone. There's a lot of and they don't take up much time and they don't take up much thread or materials. Another thing you could do with a finished one of these is you could sew a pin back on it and make it a little pin for your lapel, your jacket, your bag. That would be a really cute way of using them. You could also, instead of the finishing technique that I'm going to show you when we get to that point, you could sew them on as patches. I know that for some people patches are just like where it's at. They like to make patches on their embroidery machines and all the things. So that's a possibility. My concern with that is I don't know how good they would be laundered. I think I had a question about that on another slow stitch video on, you know, how do you launder them? I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I use raw edges. I don't, yeah, I think I would be a little scared too. I mean, I would hand wash them maybe if they got something on them, but so maybe if you did make a patch for a jacket or something, you'd make it where it was somewhat removable. That would be maybe my thought on that. I don't know. Tell me in the comments how you would do that. But I think putting a little pin back on it would make a cute little gift like that. The way I'm going to show you to finish it, these are pretty flexible, but you could make them firmer with a firmer addition of a firmer inside in here, like a, oh, I don't have any out here. There is another interfacing stuff that's very stiff, and my brain is blanking on it, but you could put that behind this part before you put the lining fabric on and stitch it all together, make it much stiffer. You could put a piece of cardboard in there too, but you're not gonna be able to stitch through the cardboard. And again, you're not gonna be able to wash it in any way if you put something like that. So anyway, that might be a subject for a different video where I can come up with solutions for those problems. What else do we have? We have two more little mountains. Well, I just bought this bright purple the other day and haven't used it yet, so we got to use it somewhere on here. I don't know if I'm going to use it. I don't know which one to use it on. We'll find out in 2 seconds, or less, or more. I don't know. Okay, we've done back and forth. We've colored the curve. Should we do some up and downs? Should we do up and downs on this one? No, I don't like that. This is what happens when my brain decides to think, and it should never do that. Okay, I'm gonna just do I guess I'm just gonna do some up and downs. It's not gonna matter. It's also a good place to just practice some little things and see what you like color combinations. If I were to put a complementary color over another color, what's that going to look like? How's it going to change it? Because it's tiny, it'll go quick, and it doesn't have to be, that's the whole idea behind all slow stitching. It doesn't have to be anything when it's done, and it's just the joy is in the journey. The joy is in the process of working on this. Okay, and I am going over with this last straight stitch over the edge of the raw edge just to help keep that down, but you don't have to, because again, it's not going to be laundered. It's not going to get a lot of wear and tear depending on what your final use plan of it is. And yeah, but it does help keep that little edge. And of course, you could always incorporate other elements in here. You could add bits of lace, buttons, trims, you could couch some different heavier threads on here, which I might do on some of these, but not today. If you see a fun technique that you've never tried before, this is the perfect way to practice it. Like I think I already said that. Just because what's the harm? You're using scraps. You might be out some fancy thread if you're using something like this Valdani, but it's a minimal amount of thread. You're not going to use up a whole ball of it. But yeah, I just happen. Well, I just happen to have this thread. I did. There were about a dozen or so balls of it that I just happened to have from back when I worked at the sewing machine dealer / quilt shop. And I acquired it then for some projects I was working on then. But I did just tell you that this bright purple and a couple other colors just happened to show up on my doorstep recently. Don't know how that happened. Actually, I do. I had a weak moment. But I will tell you, I can link to the shop that I get them from. It's a small business. It's not one of the big ones that we're trying not to use very often. Although I don't even think you can probably get Valdani on, those big internet sites. I have never looked. So I will try to remember. Well, when I'm editing this, I will remember because I'll listen to myself, right? I hope so. Anyway, you don't have to use this. And you don't even have to use matching colors because that's kind of fun too. To just have it do whatever. I feel like working small is kind of a trend I have been noticing lately. If you can get in the comments and tell me I'm way behind the trends or I'm wrong, I don't know. But I have just noticed recently some of the watercolor YouTubers that I have been watching while I'm trying to learn how to do that better. There's one, I wish I could remember her name right at the top of my head. She's been working on just these tiny little miniature watercolors in this tiny little book. And I actually have the same book my sister gave me. So I was like, I was just kind of using it as a test palette for techniques and what have you. But I think I might do some miniatures. And who else did I see doing miniatures? Oh, I don't think it's somebody I follow, but it pops up on my Instagram reels all the time. Someone who is crocheting I think their goal is it's going to be like full size, human size blanket, granny square blanket, but they're using sewing thread, not even pearl cotton. I have done some small crochet with heavier pearl cotton than this, like the bigger, the size 8 or whatever, like the crochet cotton, and some pearl cottons. But this is, yeah, their goal is like this huge blanket, and it's each little square, granny square, is like, I don't know if it's an inch by inch, inch and a half by an inch and a half. I don't know what it is, but it's cool. So yeah, I think, like I said, my daughter's been working on small things, and in her art, my sister has been doing little vessels with her weaving. I will try to put either an image or a link for that, or a link to her stuff. I don't know. Okay, how do I want to do? Okay, I think what I'm going to do on this little mountain, this last mountain, I'm going to just do a this thing where I'm just going to go back and forth, kind of a ladder stitch. I don't know if that's what you call it, to cover the edge, and then I have an idea for the mountain part. Okay, what was I saying? My sister, Pamela Penny Textile Arts out of Oak Park, Illinois. She has been doing little miniature, these little vessels, almost like little bird nests. She uses a lot of recycled and natural materials. And did you know you could weave with banana peels? You can. Anyway, she's been doing a bunch of those this spring. My friend Anne, who has, quite often paints and collages huge pieces of art, and she's been working small, doing like little art books, art journals. Again, or not again, but yeah, she's gone to small work. So I don't know where that's coming from. These, because I wouldn't say that Anne and Pam, Emma even, are particularly like following a trend. They're just doing what they feel like doing or what works for them. So I don't know. Let me know. Have you noticed a trend in miniatures, or just working small? I think it's kind of a fun way to do it. All right, how much? I never like to just cut if I have a little bit of thread left, I'm just going to use it. So we're just going to go back across here and use this up. Or, oh, I like that idea. We're just going to run some stitches across here at a opposite what we already did. We went up and down. Now we're going to go back and forth, and we might not have enough thread to fill the whole section, but we'll have enough to do a little something, a little more texture. And I know I mentioned earlier how my fingers are getting so calloused, and you're probably saying, well, Beth, use a thimble. I just have never been able to make a thimble work for me, especially this kind of stuff. I have to have a good grip on my needle, and I guess right now I'm doing a rocking stitch, so I could do a traditional quilting rocking stitch with the needle, under the needle against my a thimble here, but I don't always do that. So I don't know. I just have, every time I try to use a thimble, I end up dropping my needle, unthreading my needle. My hands end up crampy. So I just stitch enough that I have huge calluses on my fingers, and it doesn't matter. And then eventually I do stab myself a few times, but I don't worry about it too much. Okay, I am pretty much out of thread. Maybe I can get one more stitch. I did more of the little boxes to take with me tomorrow to the Cultural Arts Center to sell, and on those, one, because I was trying to get a bunch made before I left, before I had to go down there, and it was quicker, but also I really like the texture. I just variety of threads, whatever thread I grabbed, and I did parallel rows one way, parallel rows the other way, and it turned out really cool. So, okay, my thought process that I was having as I was doing this was to grab a different thread. Maybe that color. I want kind of maybe, ooh, this one. Ooh, this one. That one's cool. I bought that for a specific project, but you know, yeah, that one. Wish I remembered the name of this one. If you're looking at Baldani's, it's number 574. But I really like it because I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it has like kind of a mauvey purple, and more. It's got some greens, some tans, and some kind of mauve. It goes nicely with that one. This one is also variegated, so those two are nice complementary. Okay. All right, I'm going to be real technical here. I'm just going to stab it through, and I am going to do one of my favorites for texture. Little feather stitches down here. These are lovely to do with a variegated thread because they change color as you go. I went the wrong way around that one. Okay. When I do these kind of feather stitches, I like them to be irregular, and I like them to overlap their neighbor sometimes, because I'm trying to get an organic look, a look of trees or flowers or plants or grasses or whatever. Again, it's what's the word? It's more abstract than it is realism here. Okay. Of course, I had my battery overheat and camera turned off as I was doing the little stitches here on the front mountain, but you can see how they turned out. You could do more, you could overlap them more, and have a lot of texture, but I think that's good. I really like that color on there too. So now I'm going to show you how to finish it off. Take any old piece of fabric. If you want it to be more coordinating, then get it more coordinating and cut it to the same size, or maybe even just a little bit bigger to wrap around the raw edges. But you're not making a binding, so don't worry about that. That's not what we're doing. You could. And then I kind of like to take just these corners and, all right, well, we'll get to that. Kind of to round them off, and rather than trying to make a sharp, see, I had tried to make a sharp, tight corner here, and it doesn't work very well, but if I slightly round it, okay. Let's just grab a random color. Now, again, you can be as matchy-matchy as you want, or use up whatever bits of thread that you have. Like I don't really want to use this one or some of my other purples because like I said, I bought them for a specific project and I don't want to use them up on this. This would be a really good place to use 6 strands of stranded cotton. But that would require I go get that out of the closet, and we're not going to do that right now. don't need a knot, but it's habit. Bad habit, I suppose. Then what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna, you know, find a spot here and come up between the pieces so that the knot is hidden, since I made one. And all you could do, some of them in the past, I have done a row of, I've done it why do I keep wanting to call it basket stitch? It is not. Blanket stitch all the way around the edge to give, because that'll give you like a row of stitches, kind of a ridge around the edge. But these last few, I've just whipped around. And that's what I'm going to do today. And the first time around, you're not going to be placing the stitches like super close to each other. And that's why this first round could be any random color of thread, because it probably isn't going to show when you're done. Actually, I do have some stranded floss over there. All right, we're going to use this one up and I'll show you the stranded floss. Okay. Nothing fancy around the corners. You're just, again, this is first pass, just kind of putting some filler in there, holding everything together. I've seen other stitching YouTubers that have their little, I think Marion calls it her tangle. I've heard others, I think Catherine, K3N, calls it her aughts. It's your little, you know, when you finish a piece of thread and you just set it aside, that would be a good, use those up to go around here at least the first few times. Mine, A, are in the other room, and B, because I've been doing this kind of stitching, I use it up until I don't have any left on the needle. So my tangle or scrap thread basket is mainly short little pieces. And not a surprise to anyone here, I don't think, but I am working on figuring out something fun to do with that. But one crazy idea at a time, I guess. So, okay, I'm going to keep going around here and come back. I went and dug through my stuff and things, and I found some of this heavier pearl cotton in colors that I like. $1.09 at Hobby Lobby, but probably in like the 90s. I don't know. But anyway, what size is this? I think it says 3 here. I don't know if that's, I don't remember. But it's a little heavier, a little thicker, so it'll make this process go quicker, I think. And well, I have this dusty color. Then I got my needles out and I found, I believe this would be a chenille needle. It's got a larger eye and it still has a sharp point. So I'm going to just continue what I was doing with the number 12. But I wanted to show you how I switched things up, and this will probably leave a nicer finished edge. It's going to be a little bit, maybe not as easy stitching, but it'll be less stitching, maybe? We'll see. I don't think I mentioned that when we were putting the backing on, well, maybe I did. If you want this stiffer, you could put something in between there or interface your backing piece with some heavy interfacing or something just to add more body to it. But again, anything you do, you're going to have to stitch through it. So keep that in mind. Unless you make it just small enough to, you know, that you're only stitching along the edge and the whatever your stuff is that's going to go inside to make it firmer doesn't go all the way out to the edge. You could try it. I haven't tried it, but you could try it. Again, we're working such a tiny scale, small scale. I guess tiny would be even smaller. I'd say tiny, small scale. That it's worth trying. You don't even have to try it on something you've already stitched. Just grab something and see if you can, after you stitch the edges, does it feel the way you want it to feel? Okay, you've discovered a new technique. Go with it. And then share it with us in the comments. How about that? All right. I think you should be able to see, hopefully, the difference between where I'm using the larger pearl cotton and where I was using the smaller pearl cotton. It's going to fill in the edges. This was all the small, either small pearl cotton or two or three strands of regular embroidery floss. I don't remember, but you can still see some of the fabric through here and some of the little thready edges, which is fun. I mean, it's kind of that, I like that look. If you don't, well, come up with a different technique and let us know, or start your own channel and I'll come over and watch and subscribe and give you some support too. I don't know. Okay. If you're really, really, really particular, did I do that on this one? Not really. I was going to say, if you're really particular, like you don't want any yellow down in the green, you know, you could match your overcasting, your edging with the fabric it's up against, but that is way too fiddly for me. I am not going to do that for something like this. But I'm not going to judge somebody that has the patience to do that. I do not. Although sometimes my spicy brain goes, oh yeah, let's do things the hardest, most, you know, detailed way possible and get very persnickety about it. But when it does that, I don't very often share it with other people. All right, I'm back around to where I began, and I'm just going to keep going with until I run out of this floss, this piece of pearl cotton, and then I'll start another one, probably one of the purples, and I'll just keep going around and around and around and around and around like this until until the edges are covered as much as I want them covered. And it has a nice little rolled edge kind of thing. It's similar, I guess, to a serged rolled edge. You're putting a lot of thread together and kind of rolling the fabric around, covering up the raw edges. You just keep doing that until you go, that looks good. That's done. And you don't need to worry about wibbly wobbly edges or rounded corners or square corners or anything like that. Just keep going. And then the last thing you have to do, I'm going to set this aside. Hold on a second. Okay, the last thing you have to do is go find your stuff that you used for a different craft. Trying to get this micron pen out of here. That's what I'm trying to do. That size might be better. The last thing you need to do is to get a fine tip pen and hope it didn't dry out and sign and date your masterpiece. And I'm going to put 3/20, 25. It's best I can anyway. All right. So in the future, you'll know when you made this. Somebody might know who made it. And there you go. Well, so I'm just going to keep whipping, and it'll be done. Can that focus? Okay, I just wanted to show you. I've switched to the thicker purple, and I remember when I said I couldn't be bothered, didn't have the patience to switch thread colors as I went around the project. Well, I lied, because I think I am just going to go purple around and then back around, and then I'll get this light tealy blue-green and do the top part. Because, I don't know, because once the idea entered my brain, it wouldn't go away. I just wanted to show you how we're doing this now. I've gone one pass around, and now I'm going back with the thicker thread and just kind of laying it on there. But if you give it a little tug, that's where you get that nice rounded edge. And just kind of see where the gap is. Stick the thread needle in, and hope my camera is focusing here for you. Just kind of let it go where it needs to go. And you could go around without trying to be right next to each other, satin stitch kind of thing, and then come back around and fill in any gaps, or you can try to get all the gaps filled in on this pass. That is, come on, completely up to you. Let's see, so you can see here, there's gaps, but it's not too bad. So I just wanted to show you that. Definitely, if you have a heavier pearl cotton, this is the easier way to go, to get it filled in with less time, less energy, and what have you. It's very hard for me to do it. I'm kind of looking at what I'm doing through the camera, the back of the camera, and not as ergonomic as it could be. But, you know, the things I do for y'all. Okay. All right. I will come back after I am finished binding, I guess you'd call satin stitching, binding, whatever, that edge, and call it a day. And also, if as you're going along, let's get this stuff that it's trying to focus on. Okay, focus. Come on, honey. There we go. If I want to cut my thread, you get like little pokey outies. You can always just carefully trim those off if there's still pokey outies after you've gone around a couple times. Let's make sure it breaks that up. I hope you enjoyed that little project, and I hope that maybe it inspires you to get those little tiny scraps out, and just nothing is too small to incorporate into a project. I'm trying to see how small I can go. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that. I have been having a blast making these itty bitty little pieces, and just to show you a couple more that I did. Here we go. A little tree. This is one that I really love. This is one that I let the fabric talk to me and tell me what it wanted to be. I started putting the little bits of, I guess, grass along the edge of that gray blue, and it said, "Oh, I'm a pond." So there we go. Interestingly, I had an event recently, just last Saturday as I record this, where I took my little slow stitch boxes and baskets that I made in a previous video and to a place where I sell some of my handmade goods. And it is a cultural arts center here in Alabama that feature works from local artists. You have to live in the Black Belt area of Alabama in order to have your goods there. And it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I've only had things in there since right before Christmas last fall, early winter. Anyhow, they were having an event and I was invited to come and be a visiting artist for the day, one of a few that were there. And they asked that, if you can, come and bring some small projects to work on, and that will help engage the audience, the people coming through, in what you're doing, and perhaps lead them, once they see how it's done and talk to you about your process and your materials, may lead them to purchase. That was the goal. That was probably the overarching goal. My goal was just to go and, meet some other artists and support this local center that it means a lot to our area, and just have a good time. So that's what I went in with expectations. And that's pretty much what I got, which was fine. And but it was so interesting to sit there and talk with people as they come through. And I wanted to bring this question to you, my audience, because I know a lot of you are stitchers and maybe quilters and other things in that realm, as well as artists and creative people. So the question I guess I have that has been, it's been on my mind for a long time, because this is who I am and what I do. But I'm trying to figure out where textile arts and fiber arts fit into the larger world of art world. And I mean, this is not unique to me. I've read other articles about this idea or this question and other videos and things like that. So it's not unique to me. I'm not inventing something new. But as I sat there, this is kind of funny. I wish I had kept a little tally of all the people who looked at my work and said, "Oh, this is really beautiful. I've never seen anything like this." But then they would almost inevitably say, "Oh, that must have taken so much time or so much work." And then they would say, "I don't have the patience for that," or "That must take a lot. You must have a lot of patience." And the first couple times I just kind of, I guess it's patience. But to me, it's therapy. It's I can't just sit and do nothing. I like to sit and stitch, and it's mindless mindfulness, basically, is how I look at it. But I just, smile and nod. And I did get a couple bless your hearts, which if you know anything about the southern US, that could mean a myriad of things. I took it to be fairly neutral to, maybe one of the ladies was like, "Bless your heart, like you dumb lady, why are you wasting your time making these little things that have no meaning or are not artistic?" So I got a lot of, you must have a lot of patience. I got a couple bless your hearts, and I got one to my face, "Oh, those are too much money." Now, I think anybody who's ever done a craft show, craft fair, tried to sell their things face to face has probably at some point heard something along those lines. And I no longer take it seriously. I don't take it personally. I know how much time and talent and technique and materials and the cost of those materials it takes me to make something. And I also figure I've been doing this the majority of my life, so you're not only paying me for the end product, but for the years it took me to master might be strong, but to get to the level of skills that I have to do something. So I just, okay, well, it's obviously not for you. The same lady, though, who told me that my stuff was too high priced, right before that commented on how much time, materials, and technique it took to make what I was making and what I made and what I was offering. So I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways. It either takes me a lot of time, talent, and technique to make this item, or it costs too much. One of the two. Which is it? So anyhow, I'm not complaining. I'm just observing that there is, I think, a different perspective or a different expectation put on fiber arts or textile arts. That kind of thing, like the value, there's not value put on our stuff, our creations. And I couldn't help but sit there and think that if I were sitting there watercolor painting or oil painting, the respect, if you will, would be completely different. And I'm not discounting another artist's medium, because as we know, I've dabbled in almost all mediums. But does someone say to an oil painter who has to put many layers of paint on and has to be very patient to not put the next layer of paint on before the first layer of paint is dry? I guess watercolor is kind of that way too. Or you get muddy colors, you know, it gets whatever. Nobody says to them, oh, you must have so much patience to, you know, take a week to make a painting. But they'll say to me, you must have so much patience to take a week to make a little hand-stitched basket or box or journal cover or some of the other things. Now granted, these don't take me a week to make, which is why I love making them. I can sit down in an evening and just make one or two of them, and they're fun. But anyway, just a little topic of discussion. So if you'd like to get in the conversation and share what your experiences, if you've tried to share or sell any of your handmade goods, I will never do a traditional art or craft show. And I say that, hold me to it. Because again, where do I fit in? A fine art show with fine artists, sculptors, painters, you know, that kind of thing. If I made bigger art quilts, and maybe someday I will, but that's hard for a fiber artist, at least a fiber artist like myself, to fit into. But a craft show, in my experience lately, people are going because they think crafts are inexpensive, and again, I'm not casting any aspersions or judgment on the people who, like, for instance, make amigurumi stuffies out of acrylic yarn. They're adorable, and I know they take a lot of work to make, but it's a different type of audience than some of the other things. I don't know how to put it without sounding like I think I'm better than them, because I don't. But it's just, where do I fit in, or my kind of work fit in? So I don't know, just thoughts. And also another comment I heard a couple times was there were some paintings near me, beautiful paintings. Like, I can't even begin to do anything close to that. Gorgeous paintings. But I heard a couple times, well, this so and such painter is a trained artist. And I took that to mean that, you know, they went to art school or studied with someone, you know, legitimate. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I, chopped liver? I've trained for years. I didn't trained under my mother and some 4-H leaders and, you know, things like that. But just because you're self-taught doesn't make you any less of an artist. So I want that out there too. You didn't have to go to art school to be an artist. And you don't have to go to Paris and study under, I don't know, whoever, to be an artist. And you don't even have to sell one thing that you've made to be considered an artist. That is also an important thing. You are an artist because you make things. You make beautiful things or you make ugly things. I've seen some ugly art, but the person who made them is still an artist. I've made some very ugly art, but I'm still an artist. So I want you to take that with you and go make some tiny art. I'm just having so much fun with tiny art, but I'm also working on some big projects. So stay tuned. Some big projects are coming up, and I am really feeling the need to do some some larger sewing projects, like garment sewing. So if you're here for that, I have some of that in the works coming up very soon. Anyway, thanks for being here. I really appreciate each and every one of you. So, peace out. Love you lots. Take care of yourself. Bye.